Hello and welcome. My name is Redboot, and this is a playthrough of Arkham Horror, the living card game, published by Fantasy Flight Games, and designed by Matthew Newman and Nate French. We are nearing the end of the Gathering scenario, which is part of the Night of the Zealot campaign from the original core box, and we're ready to continue. But before we do, there's one pretty significant, it's not really an error, because my misinterpretation of this card didn't really affect gameplay that much, but there is something that I sort of went on and on about in the last video that is wrong, so let me correct that now. And it pertains to Roland's cover-up card, and I appreciate, I want to shout out to Mark for pointing this out. I was blathering on about going to the hallway where it had a low shroud value and I could get the cover-up clues off, and I think I even attempted at one point to get a cover-up clue removed and got a -4, so I didn't do anything. But the fact of the matter is, if you read the card, it says when you would discover one or more clues at your location, discard that many clues from your cover-up instead. And what that implies is that there needs to be clues at your location for you to discover in order for you then to convert them over to cover-up. As somebody pointed out in Board Game Geek, it's kind of like he's destroying the evidence when he finds it. And so, in any event, I'm not really sure that's the best analogy, but it made some sense to me. But in any event, I can't take clues off of cover-up in the hallway. I can't take clues off of cover-up in the cellar or the attic or anywhere else. I don't think the parlor has any clues on it either, although we haven't opened that up yet, because there are no clues left in the game. So Roland is probably going to have to take a mental trauma at the end of the scenario, which is really unfortunate because he only has 5 sanity to begin with, and starting with 4 makes him all the more vulnerable, but I think that's probably what we're going to have to plan for. So, wanted to clear that up. There's nothing to correct in terms of gameplay, but that was a pretty significant misinterpretation of the card that I was going on and on about in the last video and needed to sort of correct. So thanks to Mark again for pointing that out. And we're ready to move on to the Mythos phase. Okay, so here we are at the agenda deck, and I'll put a Doom token on the deck. We're up to 2, with 8 left to go before advancing the agenda. Hopefully we can get the game done, the scenario done, before we hit that 10th Doom token. And next we go to the encounter card. So Roland, as the lead investigator, picks the first encounter card, and he gets Ancient Evils. I actually thought there were only 2 of those in this deck, but I guess there are 3. So we place another Doom token on the current agenda. The effect can cause the current agenda to advance, but in fact it won't. It'll just be the 3rd Doom token out of 10. So back to the agenda deck and a 3rd Doom token. Okay, and moving on to Rex Murphy's encounter card, we have Ghoul Minion. Ghoul Minion, which is one of the weaker ghouls, if not the weakest ghoul. But since he drew it, it's going to engage with him down in his engagement area. Pan down to that, along with Rex's curse, and he's going to have to deal with it in one way or the other coming up in his investigator phase. And with that, we will move on to the investigator phase. Well, Roland's having a bit of a rough time here, but aside from having cover-up inextricably now clinging to him, he has a ravenous ghoul. I think he's going to end up having to engage in and fight Rex's ravenous ghoul, and he doesn't have an opportunity really to put machete, beat comp, or anything else into play, so he's suffering a little bit here. I got to think through a little bit what to do. In fact, I think, well, let's see how things go first with the ravenous ghoul. I think that's the first thing we need to do. So the ravenous ghoul we need to fight. It's got a 3 fight, and we have a 4 fight. And let's see if there's anything we can throw at it. We have machete, beat cop, and guard dog. Let me pan down a little bit here. as the cards in our deck. I certainly want to keep Machete, and I think what I'm going to do, because I'm a little bit, I'm not very confident about just getting a -1. I'd like to at least get to -2. Is I'm going to play Guard Dog, because I'm going to put Machete in play at some point, and I think Beat Cop. I think Beat Cop is probably a higher priority than Guard Dog because of the +1 fight I get. So I think I'm going to go ahead and play Guard Dog for its icon value, which is 1 fight. So we'll discard that, and that gives me a +2. And with that +2, we will draw a Broken Tablet token, which is a -2. If there is a ghoul enemy at your location, take 1 damage. So I have to take 1 damage, but I do pass the test. So that will put a damage on me. So we'll put that there. He's got 2 damage on him now. But far more importantly, we got a hit in on the Ravenous Ghoul. That's his 3rd hit. He only has 3 health, and therefore he is dead. We'll put him back in the encounter discard pile. So that's Roland's first action for his turn. And I toyed with the possibility of engaging the ghoul minion that's with Rex Murphy right now. But I really haven't had that many opportunities to get anything in play for Roland. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put Machete in play. That's going to give me a +1 for attacks and a +1 damage in most cases. And that's pretty significant, especially with the Ghoul Priest coming up. That's going to cost me 3 resources, so we'll take that out of my resource pool, which moves me from 5 down to 2. And I could engage the Ghoul Minion now, but I think instead what I'm going to do is I'm going to play Emergency Cash. I'm going to put that in the discard pile. And I'm going to take those 3 resources that I just spent, and I'm going to put them back on Roland's display. So that moves him back up to 5. I want to have enough for the Dynamite or Beat Cop, depending on how things go. So let's see. There's Evidence, and there's Dodge. And that is the end of Roland's turn. Well, I think with Rex, I really have 2 choices. I could evade the Ghoul Minion, and I have a 3 evade to his 2, or I could fight the Ghoul Minion, and I have a 2 fight to his 2, so there's a little bit more of an advantage for me to evade. Of course, the advantage of fighting it is that it goes away when you beat it, and I do have Dr. Milan Christopher to soak up some damage from the Ghoul Minion, so I think what I'm going to try to do is fight it. I do have the knife, which gives me +1 attack, or I can discard the knife for a +2. I don't think I'm going to do that. I'm going to take the +1 attack, so that gives me a +1, and I'm also going to use Medical Texts as a fight card with this fight icon. So we'll discard that. And that gives me a +2. So I need a -2 or better in order to hit the Ghoul Minion. And I get a -2. So I do 1 damage to the Ghoul Minion on my first try. On my second try, I'm going to do the same thing, but obviously without Medical Texts. I could devote Unexpected Courage to this attack, but I think that's overkill. I'm not going to do that. Oh, you know what? I need to... because this is a skill test, I need to put Rex's Curse in play, so I need to pass this twice, and I get a -1. So I passed it twice, so I did put the damage on him. So I'm going to try again. And we will this time get a -3. So that fails for his second turn. And for his third turn, I'm going to try again. I need a -1 or better. And I get a +1. But of course, with Rex's Curse, I need to go again. Now, this is sort of a win-win, because if I pass the test, I get a Skull token. And a Skull token is -1 because there's 1 ghoul at my location. And that's sufficient because I used the knife. So that puts a damage on the ghoul minion, who can only take 2 damage. And Rex's Curse stays in play, but the ghoul minion is gone. So we'll put him back in the encounter deck. Unfortunately, that took all 3 of Rex's turns, of his actions, but nothing I can do about that. By the way, I just noticed I forgot to untap Old Book of Lore on the last turn. I didn't use it this turn, so it didn't really matter, but let's untap that just to be complete. And that is the end of the investigator phase. So now we move to the enemy phase, but we have successfully dispatched all of the enemies. So we will skip the enemy phase and move right to the upkeep phase. So Roland will go first, and he will pick up a resource, which I'll do off camera, that brings him up to 6. And then he'll pick up a card. And he gets, well, another copy of Machete. Not useful as a card, but definitely useful because of that fight icon. We'll almost certainly be using that at some point in the future. So that's not really a bad draw. We move to Rex. And Rex will pick up a resource. So he is now also up to 6 resources. And he'll pick up a card. And he gets a card I've been kind of hoping for, Mind Over Matter. We can use intelligence in place of fight and evade. And we're certainly going to use that. That's one of the cards that I've been kind of hoping to get. Put that in his hand. His hand is up to 8. Roland's is up to 5. So we have no problems there. And that is the end of the upkeep phase. And now we move to the next Mythos phase. So here we are at the agenda deck. And we'll put a Doom token on the agenda deck. We're up to 4 now because of the Ancient Evils card. Last turn we accelerated a little bit. Now, before we draw encounter cards, I'm just going to hold the phone for just a second, because one thing I forgot is I have an opportunity to play my clues in order to move to the next act card. And I think I'm going to do that. I think I'm going to go ahead and do that. So I know I've placed a Doom on the agenda deck, but I don't think it's a big deal to go back. So I'm going to go ahead and turn over the barrier by using 6 of my clues, 3 from Rex Murphy and 3 from Roland Banks. And then we'll go to the encounter deck as soon as we're done with whatever the act tells us to do. So here we are at the barrier. It says, when the round ends, investigators in the hallway, which is where we are, may, as a group, spend the requisite number of clues to advance. And you see we need 3 clues per investigator, which is 6. We have 6, so therefore we'll spend them, and we'll flip over the act card. And it says, using the barrel from the attic, you carry ice and snow from the cellar and hurl it at the barrier. The barrier sparks and shudders as it consumes the ice, then hisses and fades out of existence. The barrier blocking passage into the parlor has vanished. Reveal the parlor. Put the set-aside Lita Chandler into play in the parlor, and spawn the set-aside Ghoul Priest in the hallway. So let's go up to the map and do all of that. So the first thing we'll do is we'll reveal the parlor. And it says, well, we have no clues, unfortunately, so I thought that was the case, but I wasn't sure. So we're permanently going to have the cover-up card for Roland. We can resign as an action if we're in the parlor. And we can also, while Lita Chandler is not controlled by a player, she gains an action parlay. We test intelligence 4. If we succeed, we take control of Lita Chandler. And I think I'm going to probably end up sending Rex in there to parlay with her. So we'll go ahead and we'll put that card back on the map. And we'll pick up the Lita Chandler card. And let's take a look at that. It says, while we control Lita Chandler, she gains +1 attack for each investigator in our location. And as a quick action, when an investigator at your location successfully attacks a monster enemy, that investigator deals 1 damage. She also has 3 damage and 3 psychic damage, horror, that she can soak up, which I believe against the Ghoul Priest is a 1 hit, so that's pretty useful, and I'd like to get her into play. So we'll put her in the parlor. Finally, the Ghoul Priest comes crashing through the wall. His prey is the highest fight. He is a hunter, and he has retaliate. So if we miss him, he does damage against us. A figure in red robes wearing a bone mask. It gibbers and snarls before leaping to attack. It's got 2 victory points, which would bring us up to 6 if we can kill it, and it does 2 physical damage and 2 horror damage. So that gets spawned in the hallway. Really nasty guy. Takes 10 hits, by the way, 5 per investigator. Very nasty. But we are going to try to kill it, hopefully with the help of Lita Chandler. Now, so the question is, I put it in the hallway, but the question is who it engages with, and I think that's going to be Roland. There's a tie. It could engage with either Roland or Rex, but it has the prey of the highest fight. The highest fight is Roland. So Roland is going to get engaged by the Ghoul Priest, and that is the end of the upkeep phase, or the end of the round. We've put a Doom on the agenda, so now we can go over to the encounter cards. So this is certainly the point in the scenario where the proverbial crap hits the fan. We not only have the Ghoul Priest to contend with and Lita Chandler to contend with in the parlor, but we have to pick up a couple of encounter cards as well. So the first encounter card goes to Roland, and it is Frozen in Fear. We put Frozen in Fear in play in our threat area. First time we perform one of the following actions: move, fight, or evade. It costs an additional action. At the end of our turn, we test 3 willpower. By the way, we have 3 willpower. If we succeed, we discard Frozen in Fear. That's not a good card to get at this point, or really any point in the game, but we'll put that into Roland's threat area. And we move to the encounter card for Rex, which is Crypt Chill. We test 4 willpower. If we fail, we choose and discard an asset we control. Not a big deal. Let's go ahead and take a regular test at -1. So we need a +1 to succeed. So we need a +1 or an Elder Sign in order to succeed, and we pick up a skull token. That's a -1 because there's... Let's see if we can focus that. -1 because there's 1 ghoul in the location. That's not sufficient. So we're going to have to lose an asset. The asset I'm going to take out is Old Book of Lore. Dr. Milan Christopher can soak up some damage. Hyper Awareness can actually help us get a hit in on the Ghoul Priest with Mind Over Matter. And of course, Knife could come in handy, even though he doesn't really have much of a chance of hitting the Ghoul Priest. But Old Book of Lore is probably the least useful of the cards right now. So I'm going to go ahead and discard that as a penalty for Crypt Chill. And that is the end of the encounter phase. Or rather, that is the end of the Mythos phase. Now, there's a number of things we can do. Starting to fight the Ghoul Priest, evading the Ghoul Priest. Rex could use Mind Over Matter to try to get a hit in on the Ghoul Priest. But I really think the best thing to do is we really need to get Lita Chandler into play. She can be a very powerful ally, and so let us do that. So Rex is currently unengaged, so as his first action, he is going to move into the parlor, and as his second action, he is going to engage with Lita. Now, in order to parlay with Lita, we have to test intelligence 4, and he has an intelligence of 4, but I'm not going to take a risk, or I'm going to take as little risk as possible. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to spend 1 resource to get 1 additional intelligence through hyper-awareness. I also get +1 intelligence for Milan Christopher, so that moves me to a +2. And I think I'll go ahead and spend the art student, which gives me another intelligence icon. That gives me a +3. And hopefully that'll be sufficient. Remember, if I succeed, I have to draw a second time because of Rex's curse. So -3, and I get a 0. So that's a good start. And now the Rex's curse roll is next, and I get, wow, -3, just barely. So I'm glad I spent those cards. So the parlay with Lita Chandler works. So I take control of Lita Chandler as an asset. She is an ally, and therefore I can only have 1 ally. She has, if I pan up here, you can see that she has an ally icon. So I cannot keep Dr. Milan Christopher in play. I'm going to have to discard him. Goodbye, Dr. Christopher. You were very helpful. But Lita Chandler at this point is more important. We'll put her here at the front. And that is Rex's second action. And as his third action, he's going to move back to the hallway. Remember, each investigator at your location gets the advantage of Lita Chandler's assistance. So that's why I did Rex Murphy first, so that Roland, when he attacks, gets Lita's help. And now we're ready to move to Roland. So here we are with Roland's deck, and right now, Roland, let's see, the Ghoul Priest, he's going to attack the Ghoul Priest, probably 3 times. And the Ghoul Priest has 4 attack, and Roland has the Machete, which gives him +1. He's got Lita Chandler, which gives him +2. And let's go ahead and give him Machete. No, I think we'll just take the +2 at this point. Well, I could use Machete and Beat Cop. There's also the Dynamite at some point, which will probably blow up everybody, but might be worthwhile as a last shot in on the Ghoul Priest. So, yeah, I think we'll go ahead and we'll use Machete to get to +3. So we'll put that in the discard pile. And we need a +3. Now remember, we'll do a +1 damage if we hit with the Machete, and we'll do another +1 damage for Lita Chandler. And we got a -4. That hurts. Okay, so he's not successful on his first run. So as a second shot, I'm going to go ahead and try again. This time it's -2. No, I think I will use Beat Comp. Might as well go ahead and use it now. So I'm going to, I also could put Beat Cop in play at some point, couldn't I? But I'm probably not going to disengage with the Ghoul Priest. I don't want to take an attack of opportunity. No, I'm not going to use Beat Comp. What I'm going to do is I'm going to discard Beat Comp to do 1 damage to an enemy at my location. So that is its quick action. I don't believe that entails an attack of opportunity. So we put the first of 10 damage on the Ghoul Priest. And now I'll go ahead with my second action. Actually, it's my third action because Frozen in Fear requires me to spend an additional action to fight. So let's do my third action. I need a -2 or better, and I get a +1. So I do 3 additional damage one for the Roland, one for the Machete, and one for Lita Chandler. And the Ghoul Priest is up to 4 damage. Now, before we go to the enemy phase, I need to try to get rid of Frozen in Fear. And I'm not going to throw anything at it. I need to test 3 willpower. I have a 3 willpower. I could put Dodge on it, and I could put Dynamite Blast on it, but I plan on using both of those cards. So let's just hope for a 0. Here we go. Well, we got a -2. So Frozen in Fear still in play in Roland's threat area. And now we're ready to move to the enemy phase. Well, let's move to the enemy phase. Let's focus in on the Ghoul Priest. The Ghoul Priest does 2 physical damage and 2 regular damage, sanity damage. But I'm going to use Dodge as a fast card. I play when an enemy attacks an investigator, and I cancel that attack. So we'll discard Dodge. We'll cancel the attack of the Ghoul Priest. Doesn't say an elite enemy. It says any enemy. So that's a very fortuitous dodge. So now we move to the, that's the enemy phase. We now move to the upkeep phase. So Roland used a lot of cards on that turn. We have Evidence and Dynamite Blast. Holding Dynamite Blast in reserve at this point, but let's go ahead and put a resource on Roland. He's up to 7. And we'll draw a card. Guts would have come in handy. Well, it still will come in handy when we roll for Frozen in Fear next turn. So that's actually good. We have a good chance now of getting Frozen in Fear out of our threat area. So hopefully that'll happen. Let's now go to Rex. All right, here we are at Rex Murphy's hand. So let's go ahead and get a resource on him. He moves from 5 to 6 resources. And we draw a card for him, and he gets Hyper Awareness. Not particularly useful. Could be useful for an evade, but we don't really need it. So anyway, we'll put that in our hand. We have 8 cards in our hand, and yeah, let's move to the... I guess we'll move to the next Mythos phase. The reason I'm hesitating is because I believe... Yeah, Rex didn't go last turn, did he? No, he did not. So let's, before we do anything else, let's take Rex's turn. I got a little excited there. Let's go ahead and take Rex's turn. Because I definitely want to try to get one shot in on the Ghoul Priest. Even though, because I'm not engaged with it, if I miss, I actually hit Roland. With the Ghoul Priest, I think it's probably, I think it's probably worth the risk. So, for his first turn, or not even his first turn, he's going to play Mind Over Matter. Until the end of the round, I can use Intelligence instead of Fight. So that's what I'm going to do. We'll put that in the discard pile. So he has 4 Intelligence now against 4 Fight. And so the first thing he's going to do is he's going to use Hyper Awareness. And he's going to spend 2 resources to get a +2 on the Intelligence. And then we're going to use Deduction for a +3. So I think that's probably sufficient at this point. I recognize that there is a risk that we could hit Roland, but I'm going to take that risk. So we need a -3 or better, and we get a 0. So we put a hit in on the Ghoul Priest. That's good. He's up to 5. And now, for Rex's second action... Oh, I forgot Rex's curse again. Well, not again. I almost forgot Rex's curse. So we need a -3. We got a -1. With Rex's curse, I think I'm pushing my luck a little bit. But I am going to carry on. I've got quite a few cards in my hand that Hyper Awareness, Flashlight, Burglary, Unexpected Courage, all of which I I can put towards an intelligence test. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. I'm going to spend another 2 resources to get +2 intelligence. So that gives me a +2 against the Ghoul Priest. I'm then going to discard Hyper Awareness. And I'm going to discard Flashlight to make that a -4. And hopefully we'll be able to manage this. A little bit of a risk with Rex's Curse. We got a -3 to start with. And Rex's Curse is a Skull token, which is -1 because there's 1 ghoul in the location. So that is a success. And we'll put another damage on the Ghoul Priest. He's up to 6. And with that, I believe Dynamite Blast puts 3 damage on him. So let's go ahead and do one more. I'm going to spend 2 resources to put on Hyper Awareness to get a +2 on the, and that brings him down to 0 resources. He's then going to use Burglary to get to +3, and Unexpected Courage to get to +5. So we have Ritual Candles and Emergency Cash left over. Using up a lot of cards here, but I think it's worth it. So we got a Cowl, which is -1. So we succeeded. We need to take a Rex's Curse. And we get a -2. So that is a success. That brings the Ghoul Priest up to 7 damage. And that is the end of a very successful Rex's turn. So now we can move to the upkeep phase. We've already done the upkeep phase for Roland. And wow, did I use... You know, I just realized I used a card. It really didn't matter because I didn't have a fail. But I used that Hyper Awareness card after I drew it. And because I had gone back, I shouldn't have done that. I'm not going to correct it now. I could take Hyper Awareness out and just not pretend I didn't have it. But I think that's a little bit sleazy because I already know what the outcome was, and it didn't make a difference. So sorry about that, folks. That's what happens when you go back and try to retrace your footsteps. You get screwed up. I should have corrected things and taken back the upkeep phase, but it didn't matter in the end. But I'm going to punish myself a little bit by keeping the other Hyper Awareness off of the back, keep it in my discard pile. So with that, we move to the Mythos phase, and in the Mythos phase, we are going to put another Doom on the Doom track, and I need to check one thing first before we move to the encounter cards. Yes, actually, I was just thinking as I was putting a Doom counter on the Doom track that I forgot to take advantage of Lita Chandler. I was thinking that Lita Chandler did not put an extra damage on the Ghoul Priest because Rex Murphy was using intelligence to attack rather than fight. But in fact, the card says when an investigator at your location successfully attacks a monster, that investigator deals +1 damage. And if you look at the deduction, the Mind Over Matter card, it says you may use intelligence in place of fight, but I think that means that it's still an attack. It's not like a Vulcan Mind Meld or something like that. So that means that I did 2 damage per shot on the Ghoul Priest, and therefore killed the Ghoul Priest. So let's focus in on the Ghoul Priest. You'll see what I mean. Pan over to the Ghoul Priest. A little messily. And you can see that he's got 7 damage on him, but an additional 3 damage from Lita brings him up to 10. And that's 10 damage. So let's take a look at Act 3, because we never read it. Act 3 says, Yes, I never read this, so remember back to when I opened the parlor. A woman with a torch stands in your parlor, a glimmer of hatred in her eyes. What have you done to my barrier, she screams, furious. Before you can answer, a ghastly wail sounds behind you, and a creature wearing robes and a deer skull mask tears through the wall, advancing towards you. That's the Ghoul Priest. If the Ghoul Priest is defeated, advance. The Ghoul Priest was defeated. We advance, and the card says, when the robed creature falls, the fiendish swarm burrows back into the ground, and the chaos of the house quiets, but the stranger in your parlor doesn't seem relieved. You broke my seal that was set to trap the ghouls within. She raises her torch. Now we must take more direct measures and burn this hell pit to the ground. The lead investigator must decide either it was never much of a home, burn it down, or this hell pit is my home. No way we're burning it. Now, I've played this scenario a few times, and I've never burnt the house down. So I'm actually not sure what happens. I believe when you don't burn the house down, you get, in the next scenario, you get the benefit of the house and being able to start at the house, which gives you some beginning benefits. I'm assuming that if I don't burn the house down, I get Lead a Chandler in my deck or something like that, but I don't know, actually. So I'm going to go ahead and burn the house down. And let's go ahead and read the outcome of this scenario and see what happens. So we go to Resolution 1, I'm sorry. Go to Resolution 1. Resolution 1 says, you nod and allow the red-haired one to set the walls and floor of your house ablaze. The fire spreads quickly, and you run out the front door to avoid being caught in the inferno. From the sidewalk, you watch as everything you own is consumed by the flames. Come with me, the woman says. You must be told of the threat that lurks below. Alone we are surely doomed, but together we can stop it. In your campaign log, record that your house is burned to the ground. The lead investigator, that's Roland, earns the Lead a Chandler card and may include it in his or her deck, so that makes sense. Card does not count towards the investigator's deck size. Lead investigator's son suffers one mental trauma from watching his or her home becoming smoldering ruin. That's very bad because Roland already has a mental trauma, so that's 2 mental trauma out of his 5 sanity. And each investigator gains experience equal to the victory X value of each card in the victory display. Each investigator earns 2 bonus experience as he or she gains insight into the hidden world of the mythos. So we actually had, remember, we had 4 victory points, 1 for the attic, 1 for the cellar, 2 for the ghouls that we killed, and then we got 2 for the Ghoul Priest, and that's 6, and then we get the additional 2 according to the log, so that gives us 8 victory points to spend on the next scenario. Now, having said all of that, I've been kind of thinking about this. About a week or 2 ago, I received in the mail the new offering from Fantasy Flight, Return of the Night of the Zealot, and it struck me that going through this playthrough to the end, while I had Return of the Night of the Zealot on my bookshelf, was a little bit silly. It seemed to me a little bit more interesting to do Return of the Night of the Zealot, sort of go back to the beginning and play the new cards and play the new scenario rather than going to Midnight Masks. So I know my viewership is a little bit limited at this point because I'm just starting this channel, but if any of you have any feelings about what you'd like to see, I can move to Midnight Masks next, or I can go back to the beginning and do Return of the Night of the Zealot and show you some new content. And I'm happy to do either one, and I'll just sort of take a little vote and see what people think. And if nobody responds, that's fine. I'll just make a decision on my own. So that's where I am at this point. So that is a win with 8 victory points. That's great. And we'll go to Return of the Night of the Zealot or Midnight Masks next. Once again, thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your likes and even your dislikes. Thank you especially for any comments that correct errors in my play. As I always say, the purpose of these videos is to make sure that people have an opportunity to see the game played correctly. And if I make errors, I'm misleading people, so it's very helpful for you to make comments on that kind of stuff. But make comments on whatever you wish, but those in particular are helpful. I wish you the best, and I hope to see you in the next episode.